Welcome back to another night of sim racing on Racestars TV. This time we head to Suzuka for the Racekraft S5000 E-Series for Motorsport Australia, of course driven by FRG E-SPORTS. My name is Chris Mitchell, your sole one and only host tonight. Unfortunately, Dave Roberts unable to join us in commentary here on Racestars TV this evening as we pick up with a beautiful flyover over the top of Suzuka Circuit. 5.8 kilometres, 18 turns, and an outright lap record held by Lewis Hamilton at 1 minute 30.9. Of course, we head to this round. We follow the F1 calendar a little bit loosely after the Japanese Grand Prix being held on the weekend. And we turn our attention to the S5000 or the Formula Renault 3.5 inside the iRacing ecosystem. What an incredible car this is. So much fun to drive with that stalling out rear wing, not quite DRS, but kind of works in a similar fashion to help us get it done here. We're lapping in the 141s. Currently it's Damon Woods on top here as we get a bit of a shot here of Miguel Crespo for the Downforce Racing entry, currently 10th on time, 1.4 seconds down on the leader. He's on an outlap, it says, but I have my doubts whether he's going to be able to set a time, and there you go, Miguel just pulling straight off the racetrack towards the end here as out of the Casio Triangle comes Anthony Marzoka. He's 18th on time right now with a 143.998 to try and seat himself in this field as we catch him going down the straight. With about 31 seconds left in this qualifying session before we head to a 15-minute sprint race that will set the grid for a 50-minute feature race tonight around this beautiful Suzuka racing circuit. What an incredible track with some pretty tough tricks and turns up its sleeve that can very easily catch even the best of racers out if they're not paying 100% maximum attention. Greg Olson across the line, the positive sim racing entry, where ironically current teams championship leaders coming into round 7 of the Racekraft S5000 E-Series on 726 points over Downforce Racing in second. Here's how your qualifying looks then, and your starting grid for the sprint race. Damon Woods, the Dua Esports racer, of course championship leader, starting on the pole with a 141.176 alongside Tim Delisle, his closest challenger in this championship, second on the front row of the grid. Julian Dunn from third with Josh Stewart from P4. I think all these guys are round winners so far this championship. Greg Olson P5 from Drew Collins in P6. Steve Jensen out of 7 from Wayne Burke on row 4 of the grid. Reese Margette to the simbriggs.com DPR entry out of P9 with Miguel Crespo in the Downforce Racing entry starting out of position number 10 on the 5th row of the grid. From Paul Rogers and Bailey Evans, another one of the Simrigs entries. We look a little bit further down the field. Caleb Balak in the Velocity Simrad car from P13. Scott Bartain, the Virtual Motorsports Mentor entry out of 14. Damien Cairns out of 16. Luke Heidencrane and Spatch rounding out the first two outside of the top 20. Marcus Konitska, the last car on the starting grid in P23. Lockie Capel, of course, lining up in the safety car this evening. 23 starters. We're missing a couple from the grid there. There's some very vacant spots so far. We'll see whether they do pop in. There we go. Goes Tim Delisle into P2 on the starting grid here. Waiting on the P5 car of Greg Olson to pop into frame, as the P8 car of Wayne Burke to jump into the starting grid here. They're going to run out of time if they're not too careful. And there we go. They populate in as we get set to put on a show here for 15 minutes in the sprint race here at Suzuka, round 7 of the Racecraft Simulations Motorsport Australia eSport S5000 series, powered by FRG E-SPORTS. Final moment before we build up a 15-minute sprint to simply set the grid ahead of the 50-minute feature race. Damon Woods gets away as we go green here in Suzuka. We've already got a bit of carnage further back. What is this? Someone straight into the pit wall. And Damon Woods has been bested down to turn 1. Tim Delisle getting a better start from position 2 on the starting grid. Gets past him immediately and shoots to the front here on this opening lap as they come through the snake into the anti-banked curve and then wrap it all the way around the long double sweeping left-hander opening up in Dunlop. We've got another one off as well. That's Robbie Griffiths in the Fishy Motorsports entry. Finds himself off the racetrack and rejoining. And Tim Delisle out front, out of Dunlop, now into the Degner curve. It's a fast right-hander, very clutch in these cars before you jump on the brakes and tighten things up before you tuck under the bridge that forms 130R a little bit later on the track, and down to the hairpin for the first time. Almost down to first gear. Pinch off the corner and get on the power as early as you can. Straighten up the wheel, especially on cold tyres with these cars. And Delisle already trying to open up the gap here. 0.7 of a second over Damon Woods. As they come round the spoon curve. It's a very awkward set of curves, especially on cold tyres, to try and set the car right before you make the long run down the back stretch. Really open up the taps in these Formula Renault 3.5 cars. Inside iRacing, we've got Josh Stewart back there in third, already up one spot from where he started, putting Julian Dunn down to P4 as they fly through 200R, sorry, 130R, and head up towards Casio for the first time in this short 15-minute sprint. There's a move on there. Steve Jansen trying to get alongside. He pinches off and gets turned. Oh, no, they're getting stuck into each other, and that's going to be Paul Rogers getting caught up. So Rogers made the move at the hairpin, or sorry, at the chicane at Casio, and unfortunately got out wide and tried to come across the racetrack and use a bit of the edge, and got turned on the exit as they came around the last curve onto the main straight. See the replay in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Big dive up the inside there on Jansen, who has to pinch off the inside of the left-hander and then tags his left rear and turns him around. And Paul Rogers going to pay the price here in the sprint race. Back to the on-track action, Jacob Mayberry in the TGD eSports already up 5 spots from where he started. Over Damien Cairns, also up 5 spots from where he started. So these two making a big move already. The Pace Syndicate entry. Still saying he's rocking for the Gaming Den eSports TGD in his bio there, thanks to SDK Gaming. What a great set of software that is. To be able to pull up these driver bios and give us all this timing software that Luke loves to use here on Race Stars TV. As we picked up Josh Stewart into third. Now you can see Julian Dunn stalking his rear end. Just hanging onto him right now as he pulls out to make a move down the backstretch. He's going to have to do it around the outside as they head to 130R though. And it's going to go completely past him just in time and pitches into 130R flat chat. As you see, they're under investigation, an incident involving Steve Jansen and Paul Rogers on the opening lap. We knew that was coming. And that'll go back to the steward's room with Rue Koistra, Ty Ratcliffe, and of course Lockie Capel. Also another nose coming up there under investigation between car 70 and Craig Anspach. Now car 70 was Miguel Crespo. Started out of position number 10 in this race, down in 22nd after that opening lap incident. We're right on board with Damien Cairns, Accelerate Sim Racing now. On the right-hand side of your screen, love the setup from Damien as well. He's a bit of a convert to open wheel. I won't be surprised if in like a few weeks we'll see Damien completely immersed in an actual Formula-style bucket seat as he made the step from a lot of tin-top racing, Viet Supercars and the likes, to come open wheel racing in F3s, Formula 4s, S5000s to boot as well, as he throws a bit of shackers up. You know he's listening then as he watches the live stream live on Facebook and YouTube every Tuesday night here on Race Stars TV with FRG E-SPORTS, no matter what we're racing. There we go. A 5-second penalty to car 70 of Miguel Crespo causing that incident. So it's an interesting one there between Miguel Crespo, because he was the worst one out of that incident and actually ends up copping the penalty. So sometimes just because you are hurt the most out of an incident, it doesn't mean you're the innocent party. And unfortunately, Miguel's going to have to pay an even higher price after that opening lap scuffle. Damien Cairns still trying to hold on to that one. We're going to see what this was here. No, this is Paul Rogers. There's Miguel Crespo in the downforce racing entry. So what happened here for Miguel on the opening lap of the race? Out of Casio and into the last curve, as he's going for the pit lane. Okay, so does say a replay, but Miguel firing it into pit lane. Now we didn't get much out of that one. Luke trying to give us what we need here is, oh no, Luke Hayden facing the wrong direction at the last curve though. Must have caught a bit of the exit rumble strip or got turned by another driver, and he's going to drop down to P21 as a result there. ironically, Hayden still up one spot from where he started in this race. So he started a fair way down, made up a few spots, had a good start underneath him, and then has fallen back very quickly after that incident back to the 21st place in the JTIT Race on Oz entry. Now we'll get a shot here of what happened with Miguel Crespo looking on board his car from the start. Oh, it didn't go anywhere, and then he started rolling. I'm not sure what happened there because it didn't look like he actually did anything, but unfortunately cars scrambling around him, and that did cause a bit of carnage for other guys. We'll see if there's anything else at play here for Miguel as he makes his way out of first corner into the snake on the opening lap. Now there's carnage around him there. That was another entrant who went around on the opening few corners. What did happen here? They go through that left-hander at Dunlop, and nothing again to see from Miguel Crespo. So trying to find where it was, and Luke says he gives up now. He's trying to find what it was for us to show us what happened there for Miguel, but no can do as we go back to Caleb Balak under pressure here from Burke. It was Swain Burke getting back a spot now. The Velocity Simrab entry of Caleb Balak losing out as well. Scott Martain getting dicey there with Anthony Marzoka. That's a fight for P14 on the racetrack. Martain having a good scrap there with Marzoka, who's moved up 4 spots from where he started. The Virtual Motorsports Mentor eSport entry under pressure as well as Griffiths has a bit of a late look down the inside at turn 1, and Bartain loses another spot as Damien Cairns. No, what happened to Damien? Off the road at turn 1. Lucky there's a big run off there at turn 1. You can gather up the car and rejoin. We'll see what's happened here. As he's closed right up onto the back by another car. Oh, tag, you're it for Damien. It was almost side-on-side impact as well, and that sent him off into the gravel trap. And ultimately, I think he did graze the wall. Hopefully hasn't damaged the car. And that's going to be a sad point there for Damien, who loses out here in this sprint race. The benefit for him, though, is there is still the feature yet to come. This barely sets the grid for the sprint. And we'll see what they can do in 50 minutes. They'll have to take a fuel stop. Of course, the S5000 series is an open setup series. Drivers are given the opportunity to extract the most out of their cars that they possibly can. One man who's no stranger to that, Julian Dunn, the Altus Esports entry. He probably is still the driver coach on VRS for this car. I know he's still, well, for a long period of time, he was the driver coach for the F3s on the virtual racing school system. Spent many of hours watching his lap guides and using his setups and what is designed for the open series of those cars. And a very stout driver himself. Currently 4th at the moment, just stalking the back of Joshua Stewart, who got the advantage of him at the start here. Great shot on board, just hard left, hard right, just constantly utilising the throttle to try and maximise the traction and minimise the front end push, because you can really kill the front end of the car through that segment of the racetrack. You get a bit of comment coming in online from our YouTube viewership. Best spot to use DRS here? I would say it would be, simply put, down the back stretch would be the best spot to utilise it. Coming as soon as you settle the car on the exit of Spoon. We'll see if we can spot somebody trying to open up, or sorry, close down the wing. The DRS is opposite to what we know it as with F1. The wing on the FR 3.5 car actually closes and stalls out the wing to gain that top end speed advantage. There you can see the gap. You see that gap right at the bottom of the upper wing element. When they activate DRS in these cars, it actually closes that gap and will stall the wing out, allowing the cars to gain a bunch more top end speed. And that acts as the DRS, or push to pass function, on this Formula Renault 3.5 as we come out of Spoon. Oh, he closed it. There you go. You can see exactly what we're talking about. Closes the wing for Robbie Griffiths, trying to maximise the top end down that back stretch. And then opens again as soon as he lifts off the throttle, or maybe a slight tap of the brake to get it to open back up and create downforce there through 130R. Oh no. Problem there for Jacob Maybury. He doesn't even have a wing to open and close anymore. Big shunt for Jacob. And it's going to be a futuristic-looking race car for him. Remember that PlayStation game called Roll Cage? That's what it looks like right now. What happened here for Jacob? Down the back stretch. He's looked to the outside. Tried to go around the outside and got tagged on the entry to the corner. So who was that he was with that tagged him? Gave him an almighty serving on the inside entry to 130R. And sent him off into the barrier. He was lucky it actually didn't fold the corners up around him there and completely end his race. At least he was able to still roll and able to maybe take it into pit lane and get a repair. So unfortunate there for Jacob Maybury. He's going to find himself well down the back of the pack. Come your 50-minute feature race coming up very soon. Meanwhile, Tim Delisle still leads this one out. Damon Woods trying to stay in hot pursuit of him. You can see the gaps there on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen as Damon is pulled out 0.2 of a second, half a tenth of a second, 1/10 of a second onto the back of Delisle. He's closing right up. So hit the front stretch. 3 minutes to go here for Damon Woods to see if he can try and pick himself up a sprint race win. Of course, points on offer in the sprint race. 30 points to win the sprint race. It's 60 points to win the feature and 10 points rolling down for the top 10 in qualifying as well. Damon, the only driver in the championship so far to have 2 perfect rounds. That's fastest qualifying time to start on pole, a sprint race win, and a feature race win. Let's ride on board for a moment with Damon Woods as he chases Tim Delisle with 2.5 minutes to go. Got to jump in on that one. Beautiful round the outside move there from Damon Woods. Stalked Delisle in the slipstream all the way down the back straight. Forced him to try and take the defensive line into Casio and picked him around the outside under brakes. White flag is already in the air. And now it's Delisle's turn to try and have a crack. We're watching on the dashboard on the wheel there for Damon to see whether the blue square lit up on the dash. I didn't see it during that period, whether that indicates that the DRS had been active, or he might have used all of it trying to get the job done earlier to that. Check this out again, a quick replay of that move. Stalking him into 130R. The wing is not active. You can see it's got the gap still. And then Damon pulls to the outside on entry to Casio. Simply, plain and simple, outbrakes him, gives him room on the entry to the corner, and job done there for Damon Woods. But now, can he hold that spot on this final lap? 30 seconds left to go as they come into the hairpin. And this time, Tim will have the mega run on the back of Damon as they come out of Spoon. They wrap around that long right-hander before they head up towards the Spoon curve for the final time here in this 15-minute sprint. Remember, these two are fighting for the championship honours at the moment. They're separated by, what is it, a total of 73 points between them. At the 7th round, 4 rounds to go starting tonight in this championship for Racecraft Simulations. You can see Damon going defensive, just weaving across the racetrack down the backstretch, but Tim is nowhere near close enough. And Damon is going to consolidate this one nicely with a penultimate lap move to claim the race lead. Damon Woods executes the final lap beautifully to claim the win here in the sprint. 30 points a hole to him, going to him. And Tim Delisle home in second. Julian Dunn snuck through for third at the end there as well. Didn't see that move happen. putting Josh Stewart back to P4. Then Olsen coming across the line in P5. Drew Collins coming home P6. Reece Marquette's up 2 spots to P7. Oh no, there's already carnage further back in the field. Robbie Griffiths, is that him trying to finish as well? Anthony Marzocca off the road at Casio. Oh dear, what's happened there? Luke Hayden spears it into the fence on the pit entry. And he's going to try and jag reverse here. Here's a finish you're not used to seeing. Now, is he going to end up getting pit for speeding in pit lane? That's reverse down the pit lane until he gets to the finish line. Where's the finish line there? Is he going to try and get it, or does he have to turn around? Hayden trying to get it across the line. He has finished P17 after that one. Anthony Marzocca was off the road as well on the final lap. It was all happening for us on that final lap here in your S5000, the official 2023 eSeries, thanks to Motorsport Australia. What happened here with Marzocca? Down into Casio. Oh, you can see he actually just looped it himself. All by himself, and had to wait for it before lighting the back tyres up and feeding it back through. Now, Hayden came through and gassed it up by himself as well and speared it into the fence. So Luke Hayden, the JTIT Race and Oz entry, just got a little bit too greedy on the throttle. And unfortunately, found himself backwards down pit lane with an injured car. What happened here for Nick Bottrell on the replay? Oh, that's an ugly drop-off. Yep, that'll get you every time at the right-handers. Got a hurt there for a couple of them, really losing out at the end of the sprint. Here's a look at your final results then. Damon Woods with a clinical execution at the end of the race to take the win over Tim Delisle in second. Julian Dunn coming home in third. We'll see him start on the second row of the grid for the feature. Joshua Stewart starting out of P4. Greg Olsen, P5. From Drew Collins in 6. Reece Marquette's in 7. Wayne Burke in 8. From Steve Jansen and Caleb Balak rounding out your top 10. With a 30-second spread from third back to 11th of Marcus Knitzer. Then further back from Paul Rogers, Damien Cairns, Anthony Marzocca, Robbie Griffith, Craig Anspach, Luke Hayden there, backwards across the finish line. And Callan Arthur rounding out your top 18. With a couple more rounding it out as well. Miguel Crespo, Scott Bartain, Bailey Evans down in 21st. With Bottrell and Maybury. And is joining me in commentary for a chat post-race. Congratulations, heat race win. Going to Damon Woods.
Thank you very much. I had to really lick the stamp and send it to get that one on Tim, but I'm happy with the move and glad it all worked out.
Mate, that was an incredible move right at the end there. Were you just planning that one out over the course of the race, just waiting for your moment to try and get there towards the end?
I was a little concerned that Tim was going to pull away. He seemed to have the pace in the early stages, but I think he might have used a couple of his push to passes early, where I just saved him towards the end. So yeah, once I started seeing that the gap was closing down, I knew I could have a crack at the end of the race, and yeah, managed to pull it off.
Great work. What's the strategy heading into the 50-minute feature now? Because you've got to make those push to passes last a little bit longer in this one.
Yeah, I think the goal is going to be not to bottle the start like I did in the first one. So if I can try and grab the lead at the start of the race and then maybe control the pace and see what happens there. But yeah, with the push to pass, you cruise around at the start, and then if it comes to it, you need to push at the end, then you start deploying them.
Well, best of luck, Damon. Starting from the pole for the feature race. It could be another successful night for you if you play your cards right.
That's the plan. Thank you very much.
We'll let Damon get on by. We'll take a very short break before we come back in about 2 minutes' time for the 50-minute feature race, thanks to Racecraft Simulations. two shots flying over the top of Suzuka circuit. Luke loves his Microsoft Flight Simulator, doesn't he? Absolutely incredible imagery. Looking from over the top of this fantastic circuit. Currently still owned by Honda Motorco as well. What a great place to go racing. Of course, host of the Japanese Grand Prix on the weekend. Pretty exciting one, despite the domination of Max Verstappen. Someone told me the other week, if you just got a piece of masking tape and covered up the number one spot on the timing gantry on your TV, you'll have a much more entertaining race. I'm sure if you could jump between cars and watch them like you can during a live replay on iRacing, I'm sure that'd make it that much more exciting as well. Just pretend like the leader isn't really there. As we wrap up with the quick warm-up session and get set to jet, sorting out your starting grid for the 50-minute feature race. Damon Woods, after claiming the win in the sprint, scores himself the pole position start here for the 50-minute feature. Tim Delisle joins him on the front row of the grid, with Julian Dunn on row 2 alongside Josh Stewart in P4. Greg Olson and Drew Collins round out row number 3, from Reese Margetts and Wayne Burke on row 4. Steve Jensen and Caleb Balak on the 5th row, with Marcus Konietzka making a big charge through the field to start P11 alongside Paul Rogers in P12. Damien Cairns for Accelerate Sim Racing starting out of P13. Anthony Marzocca right with him in the 14. And a couple of names further down, Bailey Evans, you would expect him to be a bit further up the grid. P21 on the starting grid. And Jacob Mayberry, who went from the back to the front to the back again, he lines up P23. Seeing them all from the back of the grid here as we watch Damon Woods from the pole. As we get ready to build things up. This is going to be a long one. Fuel stops will play their part as well as we go green from Suzuka for the feature race. Everyone immediately darting out from their grid positions. But again, a great start by Tim Delisle. Damon said he didn't want to bottle the start like he did earlier, but looky-loo here. Tim Delisle still gets the better start here in the feature. And Tim Delisle will lead the way through the snake for the first time. Woods has to settle for second here. And what happened to Julian Dunn? He's down 8 spots after that start. I'd like to see what happened to him as he got shuffled back very quickly. He's down to P11. Oh, he's off the road. Julian Dunn, the Altus Esports entry, off the road down in 21st. On the opening lap. That is not how he wanted his night to go. And an absolute shocker for Julian. What happened in the replay here? Let's check this out. We'll go on board with Julian Dunn for a second. He clicks it into gear, and he just lit the rear tyres up trying to leave the line. Mustn't have got the clutch set right, so that saw him getting shuffled back before he even made it down to turn 1. Now something else happened here as well. As they came into the snake, he's on the outside on the exit of turn 1. I think that's with Rogers alongside him. As they make their way through the snake, and was it an incident in front? And he just got caught up as they went through this left-right section. It's really tricky on cold tyres, trying to manage the car. It just wants to squirm underneath you. Oh, he stuck a nose in there and turned the 10 car around on Paul Rogers. And that's what happened to Julian. So I would see that Julian will likely get a penalty for that as well after turning Paul Rogers on the opening lap. Paul's finding himself down in P22 after lap 1 as Tim Delisle leads the way here. Damon Woods back to second from Josh Stewart and Greg Olson. So Stewart doesn't really need to feel the pressure like he was from Julian Dunn earlier. But now he has Greg Olson further behind in P4. Who's this going slowly here? Scott Bartain. Just rolling slowly through the very fast section of the racetrack. Did he cop a slowdown? We'll have an issue there. And there we can see, under investigation, incident involving Julian Dunn and Paul Rogers on the opening lap of the race. Caleb Balak on screen there, flicking across. Reese Margetts, they're 8 and 9 on the road. As they head up out of Degner and into the hairpin, bang it down through the gears. Lots of wheel lock on, only 80 k's an hour through the exit of the corner before we start flicking back up through the gears. And how quickly these cars pile on the speed as they make their way through 200R. And Margette's going for a cheeky look up the inside on Balak here into Spoon. Oh, Balak spins himself as well. Now, did they touch? I don't think they really did. I didn't see any movement from the wheel of Margette's. So what happened here? It wasn't Margette's, my apologies. It was Maybury. Oh no, it was Margette's. And they did touch the tiniest bit. So I wonder whether that will play a penalty to Reece there. He's found himself up into the 8th spot now. As look at the gap that Tim Delisle has managed to put on over Damon Woods. That is a huge margin that is piled on. But has he used too much of his push to pass too early in this race? It looks like Damon's actually sitting back there and waiting for his moment. I wonder whether he's playing the long game here, expecting that we might see a safety car during this 50-minute feature race. Or he might just be able to save enough fuel to be able to jump in the pit lane. Remember, they're only allowed, I think it's 60% fuel capacity heading into the start of this race, so they will require to stop. Despite being an open setup system, they can set the maximum fuel 50% actually, maximum 50% fuel tank capacity restriction for all rounds. So they do have to stop and fuel these cars to make the full 50-minute duration in this championship. So maybe Damon Woods just playing a slightly longer game here, allowing Tim Delisle to get away, but you can't deny the pace of Tim right now. 142.9. He's thrown down on a heavy set car. As Julian Dunn has found himself fighting back through the field, back up to P10. He's made a good recovery of that after being off the road on the opening lap. Still a long way yet to go for Julian. He finds himself behind Anthony Marzocca, who's moved through the field up 5 spots from P14 to P9 in this race so far. It's been a good opening few laps there from Anthony. He found himself a pretty rough finish to the sprint race, sitting the car on the exit of Casio right here as he got on the gas and looped the back end of it. You can see already Julian trying to close up the gap as we get a great shot of the massive Ferris wheel on the main straight here at Suzuka. And Julian Dunn just sails on by, unopposed there by Anthony Marzocca. Probably used a push to pass or just got that much of a run on him coming down the front stretch. Scott Bartain on screen now, the Virtual Motorsports Mentor eSports entry, just getting one up over Robbie Griffiths. P17 and 18 as they make their way into the snake. Still a long way yet to go here in this feature. As we pick up Damon Woods coming out of deck now. It's so easy to drop a wheel on the outside of that right-hander there, and especially with these cars, bottom them out and they start to get squirmy and fight you. So you've got to be very careful, especially as the car sits on heavy fuel. They can understeer to the exit of the corner very easily. But as Damon Woods has proven to be class of the field in this championship, I'm sure he is well and truly on top of it. Drew Collins making his way around P5 as they run through Spoon Corner, as we see a penalty come up there for Scott Bartain. That's going to hurt. He was down in P17 at the moment and just got himself a 5-second penalty for causing an incident on lap 2 there for Scott. So it's going to see him suffer and fall down the field. Collins having a good run though, up 1 spot from where he started on the grid. Back to Damon Woods on the exit of Casio through that last curve and onto the main straight. The beautiful sound of these Formula Renault cars just ringing through the gears and getting to work around Suzuka. They're incredible machines and the closest representation to what an S5000 really is that we get to race here in Australia. Truly one of the higher echelons of an open wheel, wings and slicks kind of race car that you get to see anywhere in the world. And the Formula Renault 3.5, one of the cars that Daniel Ricciardo even cut his teeth in before he made the step into Formula 1 and made the big splash for the West Australian. To pick up the Craig Anspach there in P12, the Tanked 2 SRT entry. Just finds himself split in the middle between Jansen and Damien Cairns. Up 4 spots though. As you can see, the man behind Damien Cairns, that's him on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, just getting to work. So you get 2 different views between Cairns and Anspach right now. Oh, that's a bit wide there for Damien. That's where you've got to be careful on the exit of Deckner. But try not to bottom the car out, but he was very measured in his approach. A bit of a swap on in the middle of the hairpin as the car moves around as he gets on power. Another set of shackers there from Damien Cairns. He's a happy man. He's getting to work out here and having some fun on a Tuesday night in the sim. That's what it's all about in these series. Every week we're going racing on Race Stars TV at the moment between the Motorsport Australia S5000 E-Series, thanks to Racecraft, or the Formula Fords, or even the Motorsport Australia FIA F4 eSports series that we get on a regular basis as well. We are here and we are live on Race Stars TV. As we pick up still there, Damien Cairns just looking for a way around, couldn't find himself alongside as they made their way into Cassia. You can see in the bottom right hand corner that replay of Damien having that big swap on through the middle of the hairpin. Now we get the right on board again with Damien in the bottom right hand corner as they go down the front straight. Less than 10 minutes completed in this one. Still a long way left to go here in this feature race for round 7 of the S5000 series. Luke's getting creative here. It's even on the swivel cam on the roll hoop here of Craig Anspach as they go through that menacing, complex, hard left, hard right, and so much playing with the throttle to manage and manipulate the weight transfer of the car so you're not stressing the front tyres or lining up the rear tyres. Oh no, Anspach goes round on the exit of Deckner just as we shot away from him as well. Anspach loops it, and that elevates Cairns up to P12. Miguel Crespo will pick up the pieces. He'll go to P13, and Anspach will fall all the way down P19, P20 after that spin. Doesn't look like he's got too much damage as a result, but you can see here how it went. He fired it through and just carried a little bit too much through the middle, tried to get on power and looped the car around as he watches half a dozen cars go by. Has to do the old flick spin to get it pointed the right direction. And that is going to be a painful moment there for Craig Anspach, watching such a good race go down the gurgler so early on. The benefit is he has time for recovery as Damien Cairns. Now it's his turn to loop it. Damien goes around at Cassia, was lucky to not get collected by the cars coming up behind him, so he loses only a couple of spots. He had a better spin of it, and you can see there the absolute hand signals of a dejected man just going, what have I done? How did I achieve that? Usually some choice words being said to yourself in the sim at around that point as well. As we pick up Scott Bartain down in P15. Still has that 5-second penalty above his head for causing an incident on lap 2. He's found himself picking up a couple more spots since that incident came out, or since that penalty got handed down by your stewards room officials. Drew Koistra, Ty Ratcliffe, Lockie Capel watching over and presiding over this race as he comes into the hairpin. We might go on board here with Scott Bartain racing for P15. Well, Luke's going to take any pick here. We'll grab Scott. He's an exciting one to watch here as he chases Griffiths for P14. We'll jump on board with the visor cam. just manages to barely miss the spinning car of Caleb Balak on the exit of the Deckner curve. Really interesting to see the use of throttle and how he can manipulate the car through the snake and the chicanes. How good is that, though? Great shots on board from Scott Bartain. Thank you to Luke for putting that one together as he just missed Caleb Balak on the exit of Deckner there. Let's see the replay here for Caleb, the Velocity SimLab entry. What happened to him? He just fired it in, and another one. Just too much curb through the middle of the corner. Actually lost it and fired it into the barrier. Bounced back out on the racetrack. There goes Bartain, and he lights it up to try and get it out of harm's way in a big old hurry before someone else comes along and collects him and completely removes him from the race. So good recovery there from Caleb Balak, doing the right thing by everyone else on the racetrack and trying to stay out of harm's way as we pick up Bailey Evans making his move on Anthony Marzoka. Bailey's up 13 spots from where he started here in the feature. After starting well down the field, P21 on the grid for Bailey, making a feature race comeback drive as we hit the 35-minute mark. That means we are 15 minutes in, still a long way left to go here. Miguel Crespo off the road, the Downforce Racing entrant at turn 1, and he's caught up with somebody else who's there. That's Griffiths as well off the road at turn 1, so I wonder what's happened between those two. We'll catch it on the replay. They were fighting for position as well. Griffiths has gone for a look, and Crespo was trying to defend and then just loses it in the middle of the corner. Griffiths gets caught up as well. Nowhere to go there. And Robbie just had to kind of watch it all happen, and then actually got the worst of the deal, trying to get back onto the racetrack and rejoin the race. It's one way for Miguel to defend his position and hold on to that one, although they lost a little bit over the cars around him. Meanwhile, out front, Tim Delisle continues to try and put the hurt on Damon Woods. It's out to almost 3.5 seconds now, as Delisle clicks off a 1:42.7 in this race. There's a visible gap back to Woods in second. Now, surely at this point, he can't really make up that much time on fuel, so Delisle just putting in the extra yards in this phase of the race to pump out that gap. 3.5 seconds as they come into the snake. Josh Stewart back there in third behind Damon, up one spot from where he started. Greg Olsen further behind in P4. And Greg, Tim's teammate, in the Positive Sim Racing entry. These guys leading the championship coming into tonight's race in round 7. Over the Downforce Racing team by a huge margin as well. 726 points for Positive Sim Racing, over 487 for the Downforce team. So the Positive boys just locking it down here as we race into the back end of this championship. Only 3 rounds left to go after tonight's race here in Suzuka. We're starting to work our way to the business end as we pick up Julian Dunn, the Altus Esports entry. How's the comeback drive from this man? Back to 6th and maintaining a pretty stout, only 11 seconds the gap to the race leaders. I wouldn't count him out, especially if we have a safety car. That would put Julian right back in the hunt here. To pick up Jacob Mayberry, the TGD Esports entry, just flying past Damien Cairns for 13 and 14. Now, what happened here for Damien? Because it looked like he was just starting to get going again. He might have had a spin or got caught up on the racetrack. Oh, yeah, that's a big one there for Damien. Off the road and taking the rallycross option through the dirt. Through Dunlop, and luckily rejoins, and Mayberry swoops him up, says thanks for coming, I'll pinch that spot. Bailey Evans, another one on a hard charge from 21st on the grid in the simrigs.com DPR entry. He's a bit of a wild child, is Bailey, but he's found himself on a pretty good tear tonight here in the feature race, up to the 8th spot, just ahead of Anthony Marzoka, who's hanging with him at the moment. And check out the lap times you can see on the left-hand side of your screen. Julian Dunn is the fastest on the racetrack, a 1:42.5 for Julian. Quicker than even your race leader, Tim Delisle, with a 1:42.557. It's only marginally quicker, but being quicker is still being quicker no matter the difference. Evans has only managed to pump out a 1:44.2. Now, we know Bailey is a bit quicker than that. We'll see what he can pump out a little bit later in the race as we pick up the back end of an incident there for Wayne Burke, the Synergy Sim Racing entry. What's happened for Wayne here, heading up towards Casio. hard on the brakes. Oh, just completely smash cut away from it. And there we go. Just spins it halfway through Casio. It's a really tricky part of the racetrack, especially with these big Formula Renault 3.5 cars. And watch this as the speed shot out of 130R, and then it just bites the curb. So that curb claiming a couple of victims tonight. It's really easy to unsettle the entire car. These open wheel cars, especially the Formula Renault 3.5, not really designed to be dealing with big curbing. And you must treat them with a lot of respect. I think Luke likes the Coca-Cola Zero Ferris wheel here at Suzuka. As we pick up now Drew Collins, the 75 eSports entry, making his way through. And we'll go back to live. There's Drew on screen, just behind Julian Dunn. Julian now up to P5. We just missed that move, I think. And Julian, only 2 places left to go. He'll be back where he started here in the feature. Here's how it happened between Julian Dunn and Drew Collins. We had the wing shut, I think, for Julian. Pulls out of the toe, down the main straight, and seals the deal before getting on the brakes and then opening the wing back up to get the downforce back into the rear of the car. So textbook move there from Julian Dunn. How to use DRS to your advantage and move up a spot here at Suzuka. And that puts him just 10 seconds off the race lead now. 30 minutes left in the race. We haven't even hit the halfway point yet. We still have to see the pit stop. And Julian Dunn in the Altus Esports entry is flying around the Suzuka circuit right now. What can he do to drive further into the top 5? He was lucky to not really cop any serious damage after that incident. Hasn't stopped yet. Finds himself well and truly in contention, as that was a very loose car going through, as Damien Cairns takes his stop and rejoins the race. Cairns coming back out P20 on the racetrack before he filters back in with no traffic around, just one car coming up behind him. I think that's Calvin Arthur in the Tanked SRT entry coming up behind him. It is P21 out of turn 1. So Damien finding himself a nice little spot to slot into. As here comes Greg Olsen, the Positive Sim Racing entry. And Julian Dunn goes with him as well. So good strategy here for Julian to try and go with the cars around him. And he stays bang on strategy, right on the stint with the rest of the cars. They're going to filter their way through pit lane. Reece Margette's coming into pit lane as well. The simrigs.com DPR entry was P7 as he comes in, as safety car comes out. The safety car has been called, and it's a flurry of activity in the pit lane then, as maybe they got the call before we did. And where is Tim Delisle? He didn't get the call earlier. He's gone past the pit lane, and all of these guys are going to get the free safety car action. And that is why we have the safety car. Marcus Konitska. Upside down. Is that through Dunlop, the left-handers? Trying to see where that is exactly on the racetrack, but it is completely upside down. And we'll see here for Marcus. He's coming out of the snake as he feeds into the left-hand side. It is through Dunlop. And what's happened here is just lost the back end, found the fence. And that's not the first time Marcus has been upside down in this championship either in the S5000 series. He was upside down at Silverstone as well, if my memory serves. And look at that, didn't even take a wing off it. Just tipped the whole car up on its head. And brings out the safety car before we even hit the halfway point of this race. So that will wreak havoc for people like Tim Delisle as he comes out of the final curve. Now he gets to go into pit lane. And Julian Dunn might just be one of the first cars to arrive on the scene to the back of the FRG safety car. What is going on here? This is going to be a huge comeback drive for Julian if he can pull this off. There's Delisle, Woods and Stewart all in the pit lane. There's Damon Woods coming up to his pit spot. There's Josh Stewart coming up to his box as well. And Julian Dunn making his way up towards the chicane. Is not going to pass him on the racetrack, but has certainly made up a lot of time and is going to find himself on the back of these guys when they bottle up behind the safety car. So it doesn't change your top 5. And still Delisle from Woods, from Stewart, Olsen and Julian Dunn, as Lockie Capel, the FRG safety car driver, picks up the field. This is going to set a bit of a thriller into the back half of this race. 26 and 45 left on the master clock here for round 7 of the Racecraft Simulations S5000 series thanks to Motorsport Australia Esports, and of course driven by FRG Formula Racing Group, putting on all the action tonight live on Race Stars TV. So jump in the comment section, let us know who you think of the top 5, who can win this race from here, because if you were a betting man, if I were a betting man, I'd be throwing money behind Julian Dunn right now. He has the pace. As get a little bit of a shot of some of the comments coming through. Saw someone said Wanneroo Park. That's from my my neck of the woods here. So Brewer 74, if it's like the F1 last weekend, then the tyres will have a lot to play. Now, does Dunn have a 10-second penalty? Now, we did see that in the opening session of the opening stint of the race. So Dunn does have that 10-second penalty to play a part in this race. So he is still going to drive a long way up the field, and that will still add to his time at the end. So that's going to just cause an extra complication for us to keep track of. For Julian Dunn, even if he does make it on the podium, he has to do so by a margin of 10 seconds or more to still hold on to that spot. But that said, with these cars and the way the racing has been, I actually don't think that's really too hard for him if he can find himself well inside the top 3. As we got notice a moment ago, the safety car will be ending. And the whole field will be unleashed in just a moment for the last 23, 24 minutes or so of the race here in Suzuka. Tim DeLisle has been the class of the field, despite not securing the pole after qualifying. And he stormed to the front in the sprint. Oh no, we've got a spinner under safety car. What is going on? And is that Jacob Mayberry, I think it is, spinning the car under safety car? That's an awkward one. We caught it on camera too, so he can't even hide behind it. And it is Jacob Mayberry. So the teammate of Marcus Knizia, who brought out the safety car, finds himself victim to spinning the car under a caution. There's a great rear vision camera shot as Lockie Capel runs away from the field here to leave Tim DeLisle in control. And we like to focus the camera at this point on Lockie because he likes to show off a bit of his driving prowess, and 1 in 20 times comes a cropper. So we'll see if Lockie can keep it all together this time around. Just gets it nicely over the curbing at Casio and fires the Aston Martin FRG safety car into pit lane. Nice and safely, well done there from Lockie Capel, who's going to park up and resume his position in race control in the steward's room. Tim DeLisle has control of the field now, setting a bit of a starting pace, and immediately gets on it when they call green from race control. And it will lead the field into Casio. Everyone's going to have to bunch up. This is going to be pretty exciting. The whole field really tightly packed together as they're already racing up at Casio. And they come across the line. Less than 23 minutes remain. And a gaggle of cars all fighting for position as they come down the front stretch. And we resume racing here from Suzuka. And this has really set the stage for a pretty exciting last 20 minutes. All Griffiths and Cairns getting into each other on the exit of turn 1. And that's going to hurt Griffiths there. Oh no, Cairns spins it and tags a couple on the way through. It's going to be a clean-up in the S's. And Damien Cairns having to rejoin the race here. Heartbreak there for the Accelerate Sim Racing entry. Damien Cairns was in a great battle, and he got caught up in the snake. Caught a couple of cars on the way through, and that is a painful one to watch there for Damien. As we ride on board, Julian Dunn coming out of hairpin. He's up to 4th now. He's dispatched of Greg Olsen, taking advantage of the bunched up cars from the safety car. Can he make something happen here? Keep in mind, he does have 10 seconds hovering above him. Thank you to the chat for reminding us of that one after the incident on the opening lap. he would have to find his way into the podium and be ahead by more than 10 seconds to have a part in this. So while I said before, if I were a betting man, I'd put money on Julian, it's going to be a massive task to do it as he goes flying up past Stewart, but then runs a little bit wide 130R. He still holds the position. Very nicely done there from Julian Dunn. He's up to third on the racetrack now. So penalty or not, Julian Dunn putting on the drive of the night so far, from the front to the back and to the front again. He's back to where he started in this feature race. Tim DeLisle still your leader. The positive sim racing entry in control. He's managed to build an 0.8 of a second gap over Damon Woods since the restart, so he's still proving he's got plenty of pace on board that car, despite raising the question whether he's used a bit too much of the tyres or a bit too much of the push to pass. He stays in front. As they come flying out of Dunlop down towards Degner here, it's still really sketchy with these cars at this tight right hand. Really easy to get the back end out. And it just wants to party with all the horsepower on board for these FR 3.5 cars. And again out of there from the hairpin. Watch this from Julian Dunn. This is coming out of Spoon. Look how much little room he had to work with. He looked to the inside, thought about it. Stewart moved across to the right-hand side. I think Stewart was thinking he was going to go to the left as well. But Julian goes all the way around the outside, runs it wide at 130R, keeps it on the racetrack, holds the inside line into Casio, and it's job done there for Julian. Pun intended. With someone raising in the chat that Julian Dunn overtaking off track and should redress. Well, you could say he was off track for sure, and probably did gain an advantage, but he was almost clear in front as they made their way through the corner. So we'll leave that in the capable hands of the troublesome trio in the stewards room tonight. And of course, Julian already has that 10-second penalty hovering over his head. What has happened to Julian? Because he's fallen off now. We missed it. Luke, we missed it. Julian Dunn down in 11th. So has he fallen off the track here? Luke's grabbed it for us. Julian, just as we were talking up his game, has run it wide, tagged the curb at Spoon and spun, and so has Stewart. Josh Stewart has spun out of sympathy with Julian Dunn. Oh, can you believe it? Two of your front runners just losing it at Spoon Corner, and that knocks him way down the field. That will elevate Greg Olsen up into the podium spot now in third, and it pretty much seals the deal for Julian's night. He's going to be down in 11th and no chance of making an impact on the race from back there. The one man who wants to make an impact on the race, check this out. Damon Woods, probably the closest to Tim DeLisle he's been all race long since the restart, of course. And starting to close up, he took a thrilling penultimate lap move to take the win in the sprint. Started on pole for the feature, but has had a long time racing with the view of the rear end of Tim DeLisle. As we go down the back stretch, he's just closing right up to the back of Tim. Has a look here. Can he make it happen in a Casio? Not close enough. This time by there for Damon, but he's right on the back of Tim DeLisle now as they make their way through the front stretch. And Damon Woods fancies himself a chance at winning this feature race tonight. DeLisle's teammate, Greg Olsen, further behind in P3 as Damon goes for the look down at turn one. And just seals the deal beautifully through turn one. Damon Woods to the lead tonight for the first time in the feature race. This man, Bailey Evans, has been on a tear as well. He's been an absolute highlight of the feature race so far, up 16 spots from where he started in the simrigs.com DPR entry for Bailey Evans. We'll see if he can keep that up for the last 17 minutes of this race and storm his way through to a very tidy top 5 finish. Would be a lovely way to end the evening for Bailey, as he finds himself just trying to close the gap. 2.7 seconds to Drew Collins up the road in P4. He's got a whole gaggle of cars lining up behind him here. Steve Jansen, Anthony Marzoka, Scott Bartain up 12 spots in the 8th spot. And Josh Stewart now P9, just having a big look on the back of Bartain as they made their way into the hairpin. They come out and make their run towards Spoon Corner here. And Josh Stewart, the Downforce Sim Racing entry, probably has the pace to clear these guys and still get a finish in the top 5 this evening if he can get through cleanly. We'll go on board with Isaac and we'll see what he can do here on the back of Scott Bartain into 130R. He's got that inside line, but it's a dicey move at high speed. And he's trying to seal the deal. Bartain is still trying to tuck in behind him here as they make their way up to Casio, but a beautiful move there from Josh Stewart up to P8 now. And charging his way through. We're going to ride on board with him. Turn up the music, turn up the sound as we chase Anthony Marzocca down into turn number 1. Oh no, it all comes unstuck at the hairpin. Josh Stewart tagged the left rear of Anthony Marzocca down at the hairpin and turned him around. It was looking like a beautiful race done in a form between these two. Let's catch it again from outside the car this time. Anthony Marzocca down into the hairpin. Stewart gets a nose in there and just tagged your red on Anthony, who spun him beautifully. 3 cars managed to avoid him. So great work from everyone who managed to avoid the spun car at hairpin. But I'd have to say that's probably going to look poorly, reflect poorly on Josh Stewart. We'll see him potentially take home a penalty this evening. As meanwhile, Damon Woods back to the pointy end. He's dragging Tim Delisle around the circuit with him now. So Tim's not giving up on the chance to try and win this race from this point forward. 14 minutes to go. As we get the great shot looking back at the back of the steering wheel there for Damon Woods. With dual eSports entry. It's been a pretty close championship fight between these two. 73 points between them. Advantage to Damon coming into this round of the championship tonight. Round 7 of the S5000 E-Series here at Suzuka. 3rd gear, 140k an hour through Deckner. That's pretty gutsy as he clicks back up through the gears. And down to just 70, 60 k's an hour, 65 k's an hour through the hairpin. Down through the bottom of the gears before he gets back into the power and flicks it up through the ratios on the run through to Spoon. Just a smidge under 250 k's an hour before he starts to slow up for the entry to Spoon. Oh, a bit of a swapper on there through Spoon for Damon, and he's going to have to be on the recovery here because they go past the slow car, and Tim Delisle seizes his opportunity, goes flying around the outside on the back stretch, and Delisle goes back to the lead. So Damon is giving it absolutely everything tonight, it seems. A real mistake through Spoon there sees Tim Delisle reclaim the race lead. 12 minutes 40 left to go. How much more of these guys got left in the tank? What more can they give to this race to try and claim the win down the front stretch? Tim back in front. We're looking back to Damon as they make their way into turn 1. And Tim would probably really love for a better help from a teammate right now. His teammate Greg Olsen further behind in 3rd, but 3.6 seconds further back from where he is right now. So he's not going to be much help further back there, and it's going to be down to these two fighting it out at the pointy end as they go through the long left-hander at Dunlop before they wrap around into the double right-hander at Deckner. They tuck underneath the bridge that forms 130R in the back straight. Well, the bridge that is right before the cars go screaming into 130R. Then down towards the hairpin. Got a bit of banking, can help the cars get around the corner, but still such a tight section of the racetrack, even for these cars, let alone F1, which we saw on the weekend, trying to navigate their way through that hairpin. And there we can see a 10-second penalty for Josh Stewart, causing that incident that we watched with Anthony Marzocca down at the hairpin. So no surprise there for Josh Stewart. And that's going to see him and Julian Dunn, who are ironically running together on the track. As it stands in the moment, Dunn would come out of this one P13, P12 actually, and Stewart would come out P13 behind him. So they'll both lose a fair bit of time. Bailey Evans copping some pressure for the top 5 spot. Steve Jansen fires one up the inside of Evans up at Casio. Bailey's driven a brilliant race this evening from 21st on the starting grid. Finds himself up 15 spots to 6th and still squabbling over P5 here with Steve Jansen. Steve's had a very solid race for himself as well, up 4 spots from where he started. He managed to secure a top 10 starting position. And Julian Dunn fighting his way onto the back of this battle. Now keep in mind, 10-second penalty over the top of Julian Dunn. He's not going to finish with these guys if he stays where he is, but if he moves forward and gets lucky, he might be able to pick up some extra points and a couple more finishing positions by the end of this race. 10 minutes left to go. It's a long way left in this one, but there's nothing there on the outside on the entry to Degner there for Julian. He tucks back in behind of Bailey Evans and settles back in as they make their way down towards the hairpin. And an opportunistic move right there as Bailey just looses the car through the middle of the corner of the hairpin. Julian thought he would fancy a run to go side by side and pulls it to the inside. Settles back in behind him, but still has a run heading up towards Spoon. And you can see the classic double apex there for Julian Dunn, just trying to keep the car settled underneath him. Gets a good run on the back of Bailey Evans onto the back stretch. And Julian's going to try and pull to the outside again, trying to repeat the move that he put on. They touch going into 130R, and that is going to see Julian get the advantage and go around the outside before slamming on the brakes into Casio. A dicey moment, but would have seen the heart rate spike of both of them as they went through 130R. As you see Robbie Griffiths go through P11 on the racetrack for Robbie right now. And now Julian fancies a run onto the back of Steve Jansen down in turn 1. That was quick smart there from Julian. He was straight onto it and finds himself into P5 now. Now, as it stands, Julian would come out. He would come out P10 out of this one, I think. P10 or P11 as it stands right now. If he can keep charging his way forward and open up that 10-second buffer down the order, you can see the gaps, how they're constantly jumping on the left-hand side of your screen. Julian might still find himself inside the top 10. He's fighting for traction on the exit of Degner. He's giving it absolutely everything here tonight around the Suzuka circuit. He's still been the fastest man on the racetrack, a 142.5 fastest lap for Julian. Pumping out a lap about 0.04 of a second quicker than your race leader Tim DeLisle has managed to do in this race, as Woods has somehow made a mistake and actually fallen back to 3rd, so we missed that while we're watching all that other battle unfold. And where we were having this great scrap between Damon Woods and Tim DeLisle, this is what happened. That saw Damon lose touch with the lead. Now what's happened here is closed right up and just spins the car on the exit of Casio. So even your championship leader struggling with traction on circuit, and the Positive Sim Racing teammates now find themselves 1 and 2 on the racetrack, albeit separated by almost 5 seconds. We pick up again Bailey Evans. We're watching him. He's stalking the rear gearbox of Steve Jansen, trying to chase P5 on the road effectively after the penalty applied for Julian Dunn ahead of them. If they stay within 10 seconds, they'll manage to pick him up. But Dunn 14.7, if you go back to 24.7 would put Dunn between Bartain and Griffiths. Now keep in mind Stewart has a penalty as well, so Julian would still be P10 at this point in time. As we watch Josh Stewart, the downforce racing entry, down into Deckner. Oh, gets a little bit wild through the faster section, manages to collect it up and stay on the racetrack. Tucking in behind Bailey Evans at the moment as they make their way out of the hairpin. This race just settling right down. A couple of battles still going on around the circuit right now. Anthony Marzoka, P17, just getting one up and staying on the inside of Nick Bottrell for P18 as they come out of turn 1. Marzoka's been up and down the order, unfortunately, 3 spots down from where he started. And what happened here between Marzoka and Bottrell? Is it just a moment for Anthony? Oh, it was a big moment, and he fired it into the fence. And has hurt the front wing and had to do a very awkward left-hand down pirouette to turn the car back around. So a horror moment there for Anthony Marzoka, hurting him in the closing stages of this race. And you can see him trying to fight his way back through. Now Damien Cairns is limping. What's happened to Damien? Has he had another spin, or has he got trouble with the car? We'll watch him go through Dunlop. This is on the way up towards Degner. And now he's brought it through and just dropped it at the tight right-hander in Degner and fired it into the barrier, I think, on the exit. And that has seen Marzoka and Bottrell go flying on through. So another little drop there from Damien Cairns, unfortunately. Just underscores how tough this circuit is with these cars here at Suzuka for round 7 of this championship. But the man who's had it all pretty much his way tonight, Tim Delisle, Positive Sim Racing, doing a brilliant job out here. 5 seconds a gap to his teammate Greg Olsen. Another 1.1 clear to Damon Woods back there in 3rd. Now Damon only lapping a couple of tenths quicker than Greg for 2nd and 3rd. I don't think we're going to see that gap come down and see Damon challenge for 2nd. So we might see this top 3 as they are, unless one of them drops it, which can well and truly happen. As you see on the left-hand side of your screen how quick or how slow they were through the pit lane is the one on the right, and the stationary time, the number on the left there. Tim Delisle, 7.3 seconds stationary for a 29.8 second stop. Greg Olsen was quicker in the stationary portion of the stop, 5.9 seconds stationary for a 28.7 second pit transit time. Damon Woods, 8.1 for a 30.1. He gave away even more time in the pit lane than the race leaders, as Tim Delisle drops in his best lap of the race. The fuel load is well and truly burnt off, and these guys are getting the opportunity to absolutely send it towards the end of this race here. 142.3 that time for Tim Delisle. Damon Woods puts down a 142.2 and has brought the gap down to less than a second to Greg Olsen. So we might see a battle start to form for the battle for 2nd here. There's Damon Woods just flashing across the back end of that shot, trying to chase him down. Meanwhile, Josh Stewart still locked in a fight here with Bailey Evans, and Jansen's gone to the back of that battle. Collins has actually cleared them all. Drew Collins up to P5 as Julian Dunn finds himself up in P4 and starting to continue to charge away. I think Julian would come out P9 on corrected time after this race right now. So Dunn having a good run, trying to fight his way back into a top 10 finish after that penalty, as Josh Stewart trying to fight his way forward on Bailey Evans, who gets a little bit loose on the exit of the hairpin. Love iRacing even simulating the heat haze from the exhaust of these cars as they rip around Suzuka. Big close up under brakes there from Stewart, who has to arrest the car at the middle of the corner and not overshoot as they come out of Spoon onto the back stretch. Stewart's going to get a good run and get a bit of a tow. If he had any push to pass left, he'd be all over it, but I think he might have been used it all as we come up to the final 2 minutes of this race. And Stewart can't close the gap down the back stretch on this one. Jansen actually closes onto the back of Stewart as they make their way up towards Casio and around the final corner. 2 minutes to go for these guys. We're going to have 2 laps to go for your leader as Tim Delisle well and truly on his way around the circuit on his penultimate lap. He'll be due to see the white flag next time by. Greg Olsen holding down second as Damon Woods continues to try and close the gap and try and get back to P2 and have a race to the finish with another one of the Positive Sim Racing cars. He put on that battle at the back end of the sprint race to grab the win that time around. It won't be a win this time for Damon, but he might have a battle on his hands to try and grab second here in the feature for the 7th round. A good recovery after that spin on the exit of Casio before the final sweeping corner onto the main straight. As that gap sits now between them, 0.6 of a second. Another battle going on all the way to the finish here. Miguel Crespo locking horns with Jacob Maybury, 13th and 14th on the racetrack as they go through the Snake S's. And Crespo having a bit of an ambitious look to the inside. Maybury closes the door on him as they make their way through Dunlop and up towards the Degner right-handers. Here's Olsen and Woods up towards Casio for the second last time in this race. 35 seconds on the clock as they come past the pit entry. White flag is in the air for Tim Delisle down the line. Here's the battle for second, though, between Olsen and Woods as they come across the line. They look almost pedestrian at that rate. But this is going to be a battle on this final lap here. Does Woods want to take the chance and potentially risk a P3 finish? If they come together and end up in the bin, he'll pretty much hand a big amount of points over to Tim Delisle with only 3 rounds to go after tonight's race. And you have to start to play the championship game. Got to play the numbers game at this point in time. We'll see if Damon really wants to risk it to try and grab P2. Of course, Tim Delisle's teammate is the man he has to get over. Greg Olsen could play a major part in this one, and a hard defense on Damon would help his teammates secure some more points, help them both in the championship, as they've pretty much already wrapped that one up. They have a massive commanding lead in the championship for the teams, that is. As we watch on, Olsen making the run towards Spoon for the final time. Tim Delisle well and truly out of there. There he is on the exit of Spoon, making his way onto the backstretch for the final time here in the feature race. For the Racecraft Simulations Motorsport Australia eSport S5000 E-Series, driven by FRG, through 130R for the final time. Here's Woods trying to get the slipstream on the back of Greg Olsen. He's going to go side by side through 130R. He gets around the outside and keeps it on the racetrack. He's going to be on the defensive line into Casio. Delisle brings it across the line. A beautiful win there for Tim. But Damon Woods has gotten past his teammates. Woods grabs second at the final corner. Woods across the line in second. Greg Olsen couldn't do anything about it. Gave it everything he had. Comes across the line in third. A brilliant battle towards the end. Julian Dunn across the line P4. 14.8 seconds off the lead. Drew Collins rounds out a very solid P5. Bailey Evans comes home P6. He'll pick up a top 5 on corrected time once that penalty applied for Julian Dunn there. Josh Stewart across the line P7. He's got a penalty as well. That'll see him down the order, and that will likely see Jansen move up, and Julian Dunn will go to P7, P8 on the road here. What happened with Scott Bartain coming out of the final corner there, and he drops it going through the final corner and into the pit wall on the main straight. What an awkward place to drop it there for Scott Bartain, the Virtual Motorsports Mentor Esports entry. Just dropping it on the exit there on the run towards the finish. Just gassed it up a little too much. Brilliant drive for this man, though. Tim Delisle takes your win tonight in the feature race for the S5000s. Round 7 here on Race Stars TV. A little bit of luck can go a long way in a championship like this, but Tim Delisle proving he had the pace to get it done as well. At the end of the race, he set the fastest lap to boot. 1:42.06 for Tim, running in clean air by himself and leading this one out. There's the moment that defined the race there. Damon Woods getting a swapper on the exit of Spoon, and Delisle managed to get alongside him and fight past to grab the race lead. It was a later mistake from Damon Woods, an uncharacteristic mistake, it must be said, there from Damon on the exit of Casio, that saw the gap blow right out, and Damon actually dropped back to third on the racetrack. And she ultimately fought back in a battle with Greg Olsen towards the end there to claim second across the line. Look how marginal the cars can be on the exit of the corner there. It's just one little slip up, a foot too far on the outside of the corner, and it can be race over there. There's your official results across the line. Tim Delisle taking the win, 6.3 seconds clear eventually over Damon Woods in second. Greg Olsen across the line in third. The Positive Sim Racing teammates bookending the podium tonight from Suzuka in the feature race. And Julian Dunn for Altus Esports comes across the line P4. Now he'll go back behind Steve Jansen. That'll put Julian into P8. Eventually will be P7 after the 10-second penalty applied also to Josh Stewart. And that'll see Josh go 33 seconds behind, which will put him down in P10 overall, just ahead of, or just behind Robbie Griffiths, it would be. Just in front of Luke Hayden. There's your finishing results, though. A good drive, it must be said. And kudos to Bailey Evans, up 15 spots from where he started. Scores a bit of kudos for drive of the night in your feature race, as we're getting at least one name getting dropped into your commentary booth. And without Tim Delisle or Greg Olsen, I've got the one and only Damon Woods second tonight.
Yeah, it was a bit of a skill issue there, so unfortunately lost it to Tim, but you know, it's racing and I've still got the championship lead, so I'm not too upset.
Well, we were still starting to debate in the closing stages how much you were willing to risk that championship and have a crack at Greg, because it could have quite easily gone the other way. A little mistake, you know, a get-together between the cars, and you can watch that championship really fade away quickly, but you still managed to give it a crack at the end there and send it. Is that stuff playing on your mind at this stage in the championship? You know, we're coming up, we've got only 3 rounds to go here.
I'm definitely playing the points game, so I'm always trying to minimise the amount of points that Tim's going to either gain or trying to maximise how many he loses or minimise how many he's going to gain. So I'm definitely focusing on how many points after each race, but you know, I'm just going to try and finish my season off as strong as I can, and try and grab poles and victories along the way.
Well, mate, since we started with you, we'll let you sit tight for just a moment. We'll come back around. I'll go down to third, Greg Olsen. On the podium tonight, bookending it with your teammate for Positive Sim Racing. That last lap battle, though, with Damon just got you at the end.
Yeah, I had a feeling he was going to get me. I burned all my DRS to try and keep him behind, and I was just 1 DRS short, so I couldn't use it on that last lap on the back straight. So, yeah, that was what made the difference, unfortunately.
That can be the way it goes sometimes. We're just going to get a replay there of the move on the back straight on the final lap there. Luke on the switches, bringing us all the finest of action. But mate, a solid result to bring home some brilliant points for you as well. Another night in the sim, having a good time in FRG.
Absolutely. Look, this car and this track is my favourite combination in all sim racing, so I'm absolutely stoked to just be doing laps here. I was targeting the top 5. Managed to luck into a P3. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of Joshy with that little incident with Julian. But look, I'll take the podium every day.
Solid run, mate. Well done. Well, I'll leave Tim, because he was latest to come into the broadcast room. I'll leave him to the very end. We'll start with you, Greg, for your thank yous for tonight.
Yeah, just a massive shout out to Tim at Positive Sim Racing and to Josh and the guys at DFR who have been working together with this season. So massive shout out to them. Shout out to you guys for putting on the broadcast in FRG. For all the guys who are still showing up despite the Super Formula being out, because I know it's very tempting. And last but not least, I'll shout out my wife Michelle for putting up with the sim racing stuff.
You always got to get in that one. You've got to thank the wife and the family for putting up
Absolutely.
with it. Absolutely. I know that story well and truly. Great run, mate. Congratulations tonight. We'll go then to second. Who do you have to thank tonight, Damon?
As always, just eSports, VRS, Recaro, JBL, Tailored Rig, Arima Sportswear, SX Group. The boys at FRG have always put on a class act, and congrats to Tim for getting the W.
Great stuff, mate. Now we'll go to your winner. Congratulations. A big win tonight in the sim for round 7, Tim Delisle.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming, but it's great to finally get a win in a feature race.
Mate, you didn't have it all your way. You had a bit of a battle on your hands, but the pace that you had tonight, what was the difference that really made it happen for you tonight?
Well, after what happened in the sprint, like I thought I had it because I broke the slipstream from Damon and then made a little mistake and let him back in. And as soon as he's in with a chance, he's ferocious. And I've just been a bit conservative with my wheel-to-wheel racing this season, sort of playing the long game, but sort of running out of time to do that. So for the feature race, I decided to go for an alternate strategy, try to avoid a straight dogfight, and I fueled a bit shorter. Would have been coming in, I think, 5 laps before the rest of the guys, assuming they were fully fueled. And was just trying to break away and was doing an okay job there, and then the safety car nullified all that, and yeah, it turned it into the straight fight that I was worried about. But yeah, Damon just that last chicane's pretty horrible. There's random bumps that catch this car out with the suspension, and I'm guessing he just got one of those and lit up the rears. But yeah, I don't think I've felt relief like that in a long time, and from there it was just getting it home.
Well, a solid drive to you, mate. Congratulations taking the win tonight. Who do you have to thank for all of that work?
Thank you. Yeah, just Greg, my PSR teammate, Josh, and the DFR boys. Really tough luck to Josh. He was driving really well and got caught out with an incident with another driver. But yeah, and just Josh again for all the setup work this season. You guys for the coverage. Damon for having a great race. It's always been really clean between us and a lot of fun. And yeah, it's just a good time. Thanks, guys.
Great stuff. We'll let you go celebrate the big win. Congratulations again to Tim Delisle, your winner tonight in the feature race for round 7 of the S5000 series. Thanks to FRG and Racecraft Simulations. Plenty of action still to be had. We have round 8 on October 17 from Madnick Course coming up. We go to the French countryside to enjoy some racing here. Next time on the S5000s, of course, though, we have plenty of action every Tuesday night. Next week, round 6 of the F4 series. Now, if I'm very quick on my computer, I can tell you where we're due to be heading for that one as well. Checking out the schedule, round 6, we will head to the Hockenheim Ring on October 3. It's going to be an exciting one with the Motorsport Australia FIA F4 E-Series. It's going to be incredible. So check it out next Tuesday night. Same time, same place, same channel. Race Stars TV for all your action. F4s next week. Thanks again to Luke from Race Stars TV for pushing the buttons. My name's Chris Mitchell. It's been a pleasure to be your host tonight. We'll see you next Tuesday.